Arya and Celine stood at the edge of a human village, their gazes fixed on the peculiar behavior of the inhabitants. The two alien sisters had spent days observing humans from afar, blending into the shadows with their advanced cloaking technology. Earth's customs fascinated them, but nothing had captured their attention quite like the scene unfolding before them now. In the late afternoon, as the sky turned orange and purple, they saw a man standing outside a small house. Water cascaded down from a metal device attached to the roof, streaming over his body as he laughed and ran his hands through his hair. The sight was mesmerizing, unlike anything they had ever seen on their home planet, Velkara, where water was a rare and precious vapor. "What is he doing?" Selene whispered to Arya, her eyes wide with curiosity. Arya shook her head, equally bewildered. "I have no idea. It's like he's standing under liquid energy, but it's not harming him. He seems refreshed." The two sisters watched in silence as the man continued his strange ritual. The water flowed over his skin, sparkling in the fading sunlight. He moved with a sense of ease and enjoyment, as though this was a daily pleasure. The alien world they came from had never known such sensations. Water, in their experience, was something to be controlled and utilized sparingly, vaporized into the atmosphere for energy use, not something to be draped over the body like this. "We should try it," Selene suggested, her voice low but insistent. Arya turned to her, raising a brow. "Are you serious? What if it harms us? This planet's resources are different. We don't know what effect it could have." Selene smiled mischievously. "Look at him. He's fine, more than fine. What if this is one of the wonders of Earth we're supposed to discover? We'll never know if we don't experience it ourselves." "Oh!" Arya hesitated, glancing back at the man who now seemed to be humming to himself as water continued to pour over him. His happiness and ease were contagious, making the idea of stepping into that waterfall even more tempting. She nodded slowly. "All right, but we need to be careful." "Oh." That night, after the humans had retreated into their homes, the two sisters returned to the spot they had seen the man earlier. They cautiously approached the strange device that had produced the falling water. It looked harmless enough, just metal piping with droplets still clinging to its surface. Selena reached out, hesitantly touching one of the pipes. "It feels cool," she murmured, her fingers running along its surface. Arya watched her sister, then took a deep breath before stepping underneath the device. "Activate it, like he did earlier." Selene fiddled with the knob that the man had turned earlier, and suddenly a torrent of water gushed down from above, drenching Arya instantly. The sensation was overwhelming. She gasped as the cold liquid hit her skin, flooding her senses in ways she had never imagined. It's incredible," Arya called out, her voice filled with wonder. Selene couldn't resist any longer. She joined her sister under the flowing water, both of them laughing and marveling at the sensation. The water cascaded over their sleek forms, cooling them in a way that energy baths on Velkara never could. It felt alive, as though the water itself was rejuvenating them, seeping into their bodies and invigorating their senses. "It's like, oh, we're being reborn," Selene murmured as she tilted her head back, letting the water wash over her face. For the first time, they understood why humans might enjoy such a strange practice. For hours, they stayed under the water, mesmerized by its simplicity and the profound effect it had on their bodies. They had come to Earth to learn, and already they had discovered something that made them feel more alive than they ever had on Velkara. First contact with the shower. The next morning, Arya and Selene were awakened by the sound of footsteps approaching the house. Their cloaking device was still active, making them invisible to the human eye, but they felt a moment of panic as the man from the day before returned. He approached the shower and turned it on again, this time preparing for his morning routine. As the water began to fall, he stepped into the stream, unaware that the two alien sisters were watching him closely, their senses still attuned to the magic of the water. Arya leaned closer to her sister and whispered, "We need to learn more. If we can understand why this feels so incredible, it might be the key to understanding humans." Before Celine could respond, something unexpected happened. The man's eyes darted in their direction, as though he could sense their presence despite their invisibility. His brow furrowed, and he slowly moved towards them. "Hello!" the man called out, his voice curious but cautious. He stepped closer to where the sisters stood. Arya and Celine froze. Their cloaking device should have rendered them undetectable, but this human seemed to have some awareness of them. It was impossible. Their technology was light years ahead of anything on Earth. The man continued to inch forward, his eyes narrowing. "I know someone's there. I can feel it." In that moment of tension, Celine's cloak flickered, and for a split second, the man caught a glimpse of her. His eyes widened in shock as he stumbled back, dropping the soap he had been holding. "What? Oh, you? Who are you?" Realizing the charade was over, Arya deactivated her cloaking field. Both sisters appeared before the man, their alien forms shimmering in the early morning light. The man's mouth dropped open, and he took another step back, his gaze flicking between the two women. "What? What are you?" Arya stepped forward, her voice calm and soothing. "We're not here to harm you. We're the, visitors from another world. We came to learn about Earth." The man blinked, trying to process what he was seeing. "Aliens? You're, aliens?" Celine nodded. "Yes, but please, we mean no harm. We're just curious. Especially about this." "Oh?" She gestured to the shower, the water still flowing from the spout. The man's shock slowly faded into a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. "You came to Earth to learn about showers?" Arya laughed softly, the sound like music in the quiet morning. "Not exactly, but it has certainly become one of the more interesting things we've discovered." The man ran a hand through his wet hair, still trying to wrap his mind around the situation. "Well, I guess if you wanted to experience the best of human life, a hot shower isn't a bad place to start." Arya and Celine exchanged glances, grateful that this human seemed more intrigued than frightened. They had come to Earth seeking knowledge, and already they had made their first contact. A man who seemed willing to help them understand the intricacies of human life. "What's your name?" Arya asked, stepping closer to him. The man hesitated for a moment before responding. "Ethan. My name's Ethan." "What?" Arya smiled. "Thank you, Ethan. We would like to learn more. Can you show us?" Ethan glanced at the shower, then back at the two alien women who stood before him, their otherworldly beauty impossible to ignore. He smiled, the absurdity of the situation finally sinking in. "Sure, I'll show you everything." The secret revealed. In the hours that followed, Ethan found himself explaining the most mundane aspects of human life to Arya and Celine. He walked them through the concept of water, why humans needed it, and how showers became a staple of daily routine. What seemed simple to him was a revelation to the two alien sisters, who absorbed every word with awe and fascination. As the morning turned to afternoon, Ethan felt a growing connection with Arya. She was different from anyone he had ever met. Intelligent, curious, and undeniably captivating. Her alien nature only added to her mystery, and he found himself drawn to her in ways he couldn't explain. But Celine, ever the cautious one, watched with suspicion. She knew that forming bonds with humans could complicate their mission. They were here to learn, not to stay. The longer they remained on Earth, the more likely it was that they would be discovered. As the sun set on their second day, Ethan, Arya, and Celine sat by the river that flowed through the village. The sisters had experienced more in the past 2 days than they had ever imagined, and yet they knew they couldn't remain on Earth much longer. Arya turned to Ethan, her voice soft. "We can't stay here forever." Ethan's heart sank at her words. He had known this moment would come, but he hadn't expected it to be so soon. "How long do you have?" "Not long," Celine replied, her tone more firm. "We've already stayed longer than we should have. But we couldn't leave without understanding why water is so essential to your lives." Ethan looked between the two women, feeling a pang of loss. "So, this is goodbye?" Arya hesitated, her eyes locking with his. Not yet. The night stretched on, filled with unspoken emotions and the weight of impending farewell. The sun had barely risen, casting an amber hue over the village as Ethan, Arya, and Celine sat in comfortable silence by the river. Ethan couldn't shake the sense of unease creeping into his thoughts. The sisters were too remarkable to go unnoticed for long, and their presence on Earth would surely attract unwanted attention. And he was right. Before long, strange men in dark suits started showing up around the village, asking questions. At first, they appeared as simple government agents, talking to the locals, but there was something off about them. Their cold demeanor and insistence that they were merely conducting research. Ethan noticed the agents speaking to his neighbors more frequently. He knew it was only a matter of time before they discovered his interactions with Arya and Celine. "You're in danger," Ethan said quietly, looking at Arya with concern as they stood near the riverbank. Celine had already retreated to their temporary hiding spot in the woods, while Arya remained behind to say a quiet goodbye. "There are people here looking for you. They know something is wrong." Arya's silver eyes reflected the glistening river, her expression calm but thoughtful. "We knew this might happen," she said softly. "Our technology is advanced, but not impervious to human curiosity. They will come for us." Then leave now," Ethan urged, his voice filled with a sense of urgency. "You're not safe here anymore. If they capture you—" Arya placed a hand on his arm, stopping him mid-sentence. "Ethan, I'm not afraid. We've faced worse than this before. But—" "Oh, you are right. We can't stay much longer." The thought of losing Arya weighed heavily on Ethan. He had become attached to her, not just because of her ethereal beauty or the mystery of her alien origins, but because she was different from anyone he had ever known. Her curiosity about Earth, her tenderness, her sense of wonder at the most mundane human experiences, it had all touched him deeply. "I don't want you to go," Ethan whispered, his voice raw with emotion. "Not like this." Arya smiled softly, her fingers tracing a light line across his cheek. "Neither do I." But the moment was shattered by the sound of heavy footsteps approaching from the other side of the river. Ethan and Arya's heads snapped in the direction of the noise. Across the water, 3 of the suited men stood with their eyes trained on them. "There!" one of the men shouted into his radio. "We found them! Run!" Ethan grabbed Arya's hand and pulled her toward the woods where Celine waited. They sprinted through the trees, weaving between the dense foliage. The sound of the agent's footsteps grew louder, crashing through the forest behind them. As they reached the hidden spot, Celine emerged from the shadows, her face pale. "They've found us." Arya nodded grimly. "It's time to go." Showdown in the showers. The sisters had created a temporary hideout in an abandoned structure deep in the forest, a place where they could conceal their ship while conducting their research on Earth. But now their refuge had become a battleground. The agents had tracked them here, surrounding the area with tactical precision. Ethan, Arya, and Celine retreated into the large metallic chamber that was once part of an industrial facility. A large water reservoir stood in the center, its shower-like apparatus gleaming under the artificial lights. The water system, which had been a marvel of human engineering, now held a new significance for the sisters. Arya looked at Celine, her eyes determined. "We can use it." Celine frowned. "Are you sure?" "I have an idea," Arya said, stepping forward toward the controls of the water system. "We'll enhance the water flow with our energy technology. It might be enough to slow them down." Ethan watched, confused but trusting Arya's plan. The sisters moved in sync, tapping into their cloaked devices to amplify the water's power. Within moments, the chamber filled with a dense mist, and the water began to pulsate with strange energy. Liquid, but somehow more powerful, like a mix between the properties of water and their homeworld's energy baths. The agents burst into the chamber, weapons drawn, their eyes scanning the foggy surroundings. But they hadn't expected what awaited them. With a flick of Arya's hand, the water surged toward the men like a tidal wave. The agents were caught off guard as the liquid wrapped around their bodies, immobilizing them in a cool, shimmering cocoon. Their attempts to fire their weapons were futile, as the enhanced water short-circuited their technology. Ethan stood in awe as the sisters controlled the flow of the water with the same ease with which they had controlled energy back on Velkara. Arya and Selene had harnessed the very element that made Earth so unique, transforming it into a weapon of defense. "Come on!" Arya shouted to Ethan as she and Selene made a dash toward the exit. The agents, still trapped in the water's grasp, struggled to free themselves, but the sisters had bought enough time to escape. They ran through the facility, the sounds of alarms blaring behind them. Arya's breath was ragged, but she felt exhilarated by the way they had used Earth's resources to protect themselves. It was a reminder of the strange connection they were beginning to form with this world. The bond grows stronger. They finally made it to the clearing where their cloaked ship lay hidden. The sisters paused to catch their breath, but the danger had not fully passed. The agents would eventually free themselves, and it was only a matter of time before more reinforcements arrived. "We need to leave now," Selene said, her tone urgent. "We've overstayed our welcome." But Arya hesitated, her gaze lingering on Ethan, who had followed them into the clearing. His eyes were filled with sadness and confusion. He had risked everything to help them, and now he would be left behind, just as quickly as they had entered his life. Ethan stepped forward, his voice strained. "Arya, no, you don't have to go. There has to be another way." Arya's heart ached. She had known from the start that their time on Earth would be limited. But now that the moment had come, she couldn't bear the thought of leaving Ethan behind. The bond they had formed was deeper than she had ever anticipated. "I don't want to leave you," Arya whispered, stepping closer to him. "But we can't stay. Earth isn't ready for us." Selene, sensing the emotional weight of the moment, softened her usual stern demeanor. "We have a duty to our world, Arya. But, I understand if you need a moment." Ethan's hand found Arya's, and for a brief second, the world seemed to fade away. The chaos of the chase, the danger they faced, all melted into the background as they stood there, gazing into each other's eyes. "Please," Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Stay." Tears welled up in Arya's eyes, but she shook her head. "I can't." The pain in her voice was undeniable, and Ethan knew that this was goodbye. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers, and they stood like that for a moment, lost in the quiet intimacy of their farewell. "I'll never forget you," Ethan said softly. "And I'll never forget you," Arya replied, her voice breaking with emotion. "But I have to go." Selene gave her sister a soft, understanding look before turning to the ship's control panel. The vessel began to hum as it prepared for departure. Arya took a deep breath, stepping back from Ethan. She turned to follow Selene onto the ship, her heart heavy with the weight of what she was leaving behind. As the ship rose into the sky, the last thing Arya saw was Ethan, standing alone in the clearing, watching them disappear into the stars. With Arya and Selene back on their homeworld of Velkara, they reflected on their time on Earth. The experience had been more than just a mission of discovery, it had been a personal awakening for both of them. They had learned not only about water, but about human emotions, connections, and the complexity of love. But one thing was certain. Earth had left a mark on them, just as they had left a mark on Ethan. Arya's heart longed to return, to feel the cool touch of water on her skin again, and to see Ethan's face one last time. Back on Velkara, the blue hues of their homeworld no longer felt as vibrant to Arya and Selene. The return from Earth had not been the joyous homecoming they had expected. Velkara's energy-bathed environment now seemed dull, sterile, and lacking the sensory richness they had experienced on Earth. The water, the sounds of rivers and rain, and the touch of human emotions had left a profound impact on both of them. Weeks passed, and life returned to its normal rhythm on Velkara. Arya and Selene resumed their research roles within the planet's Science Guild, analyzing data and preparing reports about their journey. However, something had changed within them. Their mission to Earth had not just been about gathering knowledge, it had touched something deeper, something far more personal. One afternoon, while Arya sat alone by the massive energy core of their planet, staring at the swirling vapors that rose from the ground, Selene joined her. The two sisters had grown quieter since their return, each lost in her own thoughts. "It's not the same, is it?" Selene asked, sitting down beside Arya. Arya shook her head. "No, it's not. Velkara feels, empty now." Selene sighed, her eyes scanning the horizon where the energy clouds pulsed faintly. "It's because we've seen something different. Something more." Arya turned to face her sister, her gaze filled with longing. "I miss it. Not just the water, but the emotions, the complexity of humans. Everything there felt so, alive." Selene nodded in agreement. "I miss it too. We discovered more than just scientific knowledge on Earth, Arya. We discovered something about ourselves." For the first time since their return, the sisters openly acknowledged what had been weighing on them. Their time on Earth had changed them fundamentally. They had connected with humans, especially Arya with Ethan, in ways they hadn't thought possible. It wasn't just an academic mission anymore. It had been a journey of the heart. "We can't stay here forever," Arya said quietly, echoing the words she had spoken to Ethan in the clearing before they left. But this time, she wasn't talking about Earth. She was talking about Velkara. Selene's expression softened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that we need to return to Earth," Arya replied, her voice filled with resolve. "We don't belong here anymore." Selene hesitated, considering her sister's words. The thought of leaving Velkara again, their home and everything they had ever known, was daunting. But deep down, she knew Arya was right. Earth had awakened something in them that could never be forgotten. "And what will we do when we get there?" Selene asked, her tone cautious but intrigued. Arya smiled. "We'll find a way to help humans, just like we helped them before. But this time, we won't run away. We'll stay, and we'll build something there, a new life." Selene exhaled, feeling the weight of the decision settle in. "Are you sure? Once we go, there's no turning back." Arya looked at her sister with unwavering determination. "I'm sure." A wet goodbye. The decision was made. Within days, Arya and Selene had prepared their ship for the journey back to Earth. Their departure was quiet, without the usual fanfare or goodbyes. They slipped away in the dead of night, leaving behind only a note for their colleagues in the Science Guild. The note simply read, "We found what we were looking for." As they hurtled through space, the sisters sat in silence, the hum of the ship's engines the only sound around them. Both of them were lost in their own thoughts, but there was a shared sense of excitement in the air. Earth awaited them, its water, its people, its mysteries. When they finally re-entered Earth's atmosphere, their ship cloaked once more to avoid detection, they landed in the same forest where they had last been with Ethan. The clearing was empty now, but the memories of that moment still lingered in the air. Arya stepped out of the ship, her heart pounding in her chest. She hadn't realized just how much she had missed this world. The smell of the trees, the sound of the river, the feel of the earth beneath her feet. It all felt so familiar, yet new at the same time. "We're home," Arya whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Selene smiled beside her. "Yes, we are." They made their way through the forest, following the path that led to the village. As they neared the familiar houses, Arya's heart raced with anticipation. She wondered if Ethan was still here, if he had moved on, or if he even thought about them anymore. But as they approached the edge of the village, Arya's breath caught in her throat. Standing near the same river where they had shared so many moments was Ethan. He was alone, staring at the water with a faraway look in his eyes, as if he were waiting for something, or someone. Arya's steps faltered, her emotions overwhelming her. Selene placed a hand on her shoulder, giving her sister an encouraging nod. "Go." Without hesitation, Arya stepped forward, her heart in her throat as she moved closer to Ethan. He didn't see her at first, but then, as if sensing her presence just as he had the first time, he turned. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. "Arya?" Ethan's voice was barely above a whisper, his disbelief evident. Arya nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm back." Ethan took a step forward, then another, until he was standing right in front of her. He reached out, gently touching her face, as if to make sure she was real. When he felt the warmth of her skin beneath his fingertips, a wide smile spread across his face. "You came back," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I couldn't stay away," Arya replied, her voice breaking. Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as if he were afraid she might disappear again. But this time, Arya wasn't going anywhere. She had made her choice. As they stood there, holding each other by the river, Celine watched from a distance, a small smile playing on her lips. She knew this was the right decision. They had returned to Earth not just for themselves, but for something greater. From that day on, Arya, Celine, and Ethan worked together, blending the knowledge of Velkara with the wonders of Earth. They built a life filled with discovery, love, and adventure, bridging two worlds that had once seemed so distant. And as the days passed, Arya found herself standing under the shower once more, the water cascading over her skin, just like that first day. Only this time she wasn't alone. Ethan stood beside her, his hand in hers, and together they let the water wash away the past, welcoming the future with open arms.